Good morning. Welcome to the Sunday morning worship service at DuPage Unitarian Universalist Church. My name is Bob Smallwood, and I'm a member of the Board of Trustees. Unitarian Universalism is a faith tradition committed to creating a just and flourishing world for all people. Our Universalist theology tells us that every person is worthy of love. Thus, when we say, whoever you are, wherever you are in life's journey, you are welcome here. This is our message of love to you, inviting your whole self into this space to help us co-create a world centered on our values. We invite you to learn more about us and consider joining this community to enact our values of equity, justice, transformation, pluralism, interdependence, and generosity. If you would like to explore ways to connect and get involved, please stop by the newcomer welcome between services and in the lower annex, or contact Tina Ludis, who is our Director of Membership and Engagement. It's time for one announcement. It's that time of year again. The Special Collections Task Force is asking the congregation to nominate local nonprofit organizations to be part of our special collection effort as we live out our values in our communities. The task force is now accepting nominations for the 2026-27 fiscal year that begins in July. Consider nominating an organization where you volunteer, receive services, or just admire their good works. You can find the Special Collections nomination form in the next several weekly emails and on the Coffee Hour Facebook page. Deadline for nominations is March 31st. Now, if you are online, I invite you to greet each other through the chat, and if you are present here, I invite you to turn to someone you did not come with and greet them with a wave and a good morning greeting.
imagine a candle today, I think. Yes, you can do the chalice reading without lighting the chalice this morning.
Together we light this chalice to center ourselves in this sacred moment. We call upon the ancestors, those who tended the flame before us. We call upon our children, whose brilliant spark remind us to seek out courage and challenge. We call upon one another to remind us we are never alone on the journey. We call upon ourselves to hear the call of this flame and to nurture it with love.
Good morning. Welcome to this place of love where we work towards our collective communal flourishing. We gather each week to open our hearts, to expand our minds, and to see the sacred within each other. Come, let us worship together.
Good morning. I'm Stephanie Gordon, and this is a love letter to a nest. I was 25, I was living in downtown Chicago, starry-eyed, and I love architecture. So when I saw a big old stone church, of course I had to go in. And I met the Second Unitarians of Lakeview. And I liked their vibe. I was a little confused by their lack of dogma. I liked that they weren't like mainstream churches, but they made a lot of weird inside jokes about coffee. I hung out with them for a while, but then I moved neighborhoods, and then I moved to Aurora. Fast forward a few years, and I was taking my kids around to various different churches to introduce them to things. And I remembered the UU church, the Unitarian church, so I brought them here, actually, back when the sanctuary is what we now know as the Learning Center. Their dad didn't care for the community, so we didn't come back, but I always remembered this special little place. Fast forward a few more years, and my life has changed a lot. I've become separated from huge parts of my identity, and I am longing for something that I don't even know how to put into words. And I think of the UU Church again. But I have a weird rule of thumb in life, that if something takes me longer to drive to than I'm gonna be there, I'm not actually gonna do it. Related? And this church is about 30 minutes from my house. And I figure an average church service is about 60 minutes, so yeah, I just didn't get here. Because at that time it had never occurred to me that someone could actually spend more than an hour or want to spend more than an hour at a time at a church. But my life, I continued to think about this place. So I looked it up online, and whoa, there is an 11:30 service. I am a lot of things in life, but a morning person is not one of them. So it was the 11:30 service that got me here. Come, come, whoever you are. The first time I heard those words, I was instantly at home. I think I cried. Until we meet again, may the warmth of our community carry you. I think I exhaled for the first time in years. And so I came back. And then a gentleman named Don offered a free Tai Chi class, and I love Tai Chi. And so I stayed after the church service, more than an hour, and it wasn't so bad. And then one day, this whirling dervish, whom I later became known as Tony, came careening toward me and said, "Sign up for the auction, it's marvelous." And so I did. And then I went to the women's retreat, and I met women, including a very patient one named Jo, who taught me how to crochet. And I ate, and I played, and I laughed with people I didn't know. And they were kind to me, and I realized I had spent several hours at a church, all in one day. Was I falling in love? I went to a brainstorming meeting about how we bring more social justice into the congregation, and I spoke up at one point. And a woman who clearly knew her way around social justice said, "That's a good idea." Karen, you don't know how brave I was that day and how much your encouraging words meant to me, and it was intoxicating. I was falling in love. Then a woman named Tina, who greeted me by name every week, invited me to a membership class, and I went, and I learned a lot, but I had so many questions. What does it mean to join a church? Because other than a Methodist confirmation when I was 12, I'd never joined a church before. Come, come, whoever you are. So I went through the membership class twice. What are the responsibilities of joining a church? What are the rules? What are the fees? Until we meet again, may the warmth of our community carry you. Just over a year ago, I became a member. It was a really big deal to me. But I still have a lot of questions because you are a group of people unlike any I have ever known. Some of my questions got answered in Bob's theology class. Some of them get answered when I watch my dear friend Denise role model our values during women's wisdom meetings. And some of them got answered with my walking buddy Anna last summer going through all the forest preserves of DuPage. Lauren invited me to go out to lunch with her, and I'm falling in love. Not specifically with Lauren. Megan entrusted me with her confidence, and I'm falling in love. Again, not specifically maybe with Megan. Lindy took me all over her purple doored house, up and down, and she showed me all the things that were treasures to her because she knew that I would appreciate them because she saw me. She actually saw me, and I'm falling in love. Maybe a little bit with Lindy. I still don't know the rules here. I feel awkward about the right amount of financial commitment to make during a pledge campaign, but I give because the meaning of life is to find your gift and the purpose is to give it away. And I think I found my purpose, at least for now. I'm so grateful to have fallen in love with this nest. Thank you.
Mandy just gave me a look. It's like, that's a hard act to follow. It's like, yeah, I know, right? Yeah, that was it, right? Okay, so I'm Kathy Neff, and I'm the chair of the Stewardship Committee. And first, thank you to Stephanie and to all of our other testimonial speakers for sharing about their experiences here. Wow, you have gotten to know a lot of people here. That's very impressive. Stephanie also led the Women's Wisdom event yesterday, where 45 of us gathered, and the theme of that was express yourself. So that is why I'm wearing a very bright blouse today, because normally, I wear grays and blacks, and I just decided to mix it up a little bit, so thank you. We also want to thank all of you who've submitted your pledges already for this year's Tending Our Nest campaign. And I have a hot off the press update on our achievement so far. Did anybody notice the thermometer out there? Does anybody know the number that was on it today? we are now at 36%. Thank you. And because of those of you who've made your pledges, and that is a total of $406,000. So we're really well on our way to, again, we have a participation goal, 100% of pledgers, right, to participate. So we've got a way to go there, but we know that you all are going to get your pledges in. Now, I do have a pop quiz. What is the date by which we want you to have your pledges entered? Tomorrow, March 31st. March 31st. Wow, that is really impressive. Thank you. That is correct, March 31st. And the reason is why? Budget. And the board, the staff, right, and the finance committee get together, they all want to do a realistic budget. So having everybody's pledge in really gives us a great feel for where we're headed. So March 31st, if you need help with Realm, and someone grabbed me before the service and said, hey, this probably just takes a minute, right? But we give you instructions, but we know it can be intimidating. So just reach out. I'll be out there after the service if you need any help. Or to get your photo uploaded into Realm. I use that app all the time. And I'm like, who's that? Because there's so many new people. So having your photo in there really helps us to get to know you and who you are. So please visit us outside to get some assistance. And you're also, just reach out to Tina, Lewis, or myself directly. So we are so grateful for your generous support of this year's Promise campaign. And if you did not yet get a rubber duck, we've got more back there. Just please stop after the service and you can grab one. Thank you.
The mission statement of DuPage Unitarian Universalist Church reminds us of who we have agreed to be, who we are. Please join me in reading our mission statement. We gather as an inclusive community to grow in character, mind, and spirit, and to transform the world toward fairness, love, and compassion. The vision statement of DuPage Unitarian Universalist Church is our dream, who we wish to become. Please join me in reading our vision statement. We strive to boldly enact our values toward a just world as we nurture our growth to become a more inclusive and deeply connected intergenerational community.
Our vision of beloved community is rooted in the relationships that we have with one another, our world, and creation. Each week we offer the opportunity for joys or concerns to be shared here aloud from the pulpit, and I have a couple of different joys and concerns. From Stephanie Gordon and the Women's Wisdom leadership team, a joy for the sisterhood of spirit and self-expression that filled this sacred space during the Women's Wisdom retreat yesterday. Our vibrant intergenerational community was alive with love and laughter. And Jack Blair adds that he has joy for the women's event that felt so wonderfully generous and luxuriant to his spouse. It made her day. So a personal testimony on top of it all. I have a joy from John Tatro in regards to one of our DUUC members, Dave Gorman, who safely completed the 72-mile Mo Shui Shui walk. First, our UU the Vote postcarding campaign went live with 400 postcards available to support Wisconsin voters ahead of the Wisconsin Supreme Court race in April. Within the first hour, all postcards had been claimed, an amazing response from our congregation and a show of our commitment to our values this election year. If you are still hoping to get involved, I know there's more to do. Mary Dacus, are you going to be out in the... Great, Mary will be out there. Stephanie's traveling this weekend, but please contact Mary if you're interested in getting involved. Stephanie also says, I want to honor the election heroes in our congregation who are serving as election workers either during early voting period or on March 17th. Thank you for keeping our democracy running and for your commitment to ensuring our elections are safe, accessible, and secure for everyone. Indeed. I got to take a first-time voter to the polls with me last week, so yay! This is how we do faith formation in this community, and it is a beautiful thing. I would like us also, excuse me, I'm still recovering from a cold. I would like us also to hold in our hearts those at the Dominion University where a shooting happened this past week, and for those who were affected by the terrorist attack at the synagogue in Michigan. It is a time where so much is happening and responses are often violent. Let us hold all of us, every one of us, with peace and love. And let us respond with curiosity. And in a faith tradition that holds questions as sacred, may we respond first and foremost with questions. Indeed, our meditative prayer today is by Bayo Akomolafe, and it is just about questions. There are always other questions, he says. Please join me in a time of meditative prayer. My daughter, Alethea, in times of trouble, such as the one we now inhabit, what with the burning fires and broken oceans, it is customary to ask, what shall we do? What do we do about the killing of whales or the loss of Sumatran tigers? What do we do about the plumes of toxic waste embroidering the air and the virulent dots of pestilence and sickness infiltrating our pandemic streets? What do we do? It seems a natural thing to ask, does it not, dear? It feels evident, obvious, and maybe even moral. However, it is quite emphatically not as fundamental as it seems. Instead, the question is a political move, a risk, an imperative of centuries of training in the cosmology of the individual, a strategy that often presupposes the primacy of human intention. This is the thing with questions. They are never passive recipients or innocent containers for the answers they seek. They are sculptors of possibilities, participants in the mysterious ways the world shapes itself. Let me tell you, there are always other questions. You must learn to find them, to listen for their chirruping, buzzing, hip-hopping, bebopping, hissing, chewing, amening, and blaring sounds. Slow down long enough to hear these susurrations of the otherwise. Let your ears be errant, and you might just happen upon a world more alive than our deepest hopes may convey. It is time together, and so I would love to invite our children, our young at heart, forward for story time. This is one of my favorite books. It is called The King Who Banned the Dark. I've read it before, but I think it's really important for today. There was once a little boy who was afraid of the dark. There's nothing so unusual about that. Most children are afraid of the dark at one time or another. But this little boy was a prince, and he decided that when he became king, he would do something about the dark. He would ban it. On the first morning of his reign, the king told his advisors about his plan. "With the greatest respect, Your Majesty, if you ban the dark just like that, the people won't understand. They'll revolt against you. But if you make them think it's their idea, it might just work. And so the advisors started to spread rumors about the dark. The dark is scary. The dark is boring. You can't play in the dark. Read all about it. The dark is stealing your money. The dark is taking your toys and candy. The people had never really worried about the dark before, but all of a sudden it started to seem like a really bad thing. So they marched to the palace and demanded a ban on the dark. "Very well," said the king. "From now on, the dark will be banished from this land." And because everyone got what they thought they wanted, everyone thought they were happy. To make sure that it would never be dark again, an enormous artificial sun was installed above the palace. Even when the real sun set, the artificial sun kept shining all day and all night. It glowed in the sky. Curtains were taken down, anti-dark hats were issued, lamps shone from every window 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The people stayed up all night celebrating, which was easy because it never got dark. But soon the people were tired of celebrating. In fact, they were just tired. With the lights on all the time, no one could sleep at all, and with no real nighttime, the days dragged on forever. The people had made a mistake. They realized pretty quickly that they needed the dark back. But if anyone tried to switch their lights off, the light inspectors would come and make them pay a fine. As the king tried to sleep under the glare of 100 light bulbs, he heard shouts from outside the palace. "Don't worry, Your Majesty," said the advisors. "What we need is a distraction." I think some people are getting the gist of this book, huh? To get the people excited about the dark ban again, the advisors decided to throw a big party. Great celebration of the dark ban with fireworks, the brightest thing of all. But the people weren't as silly as the king's advisors thought they were. Whisper by whisper, they hatched their own plan. On the night of the great celebration, the king stood on the roof to watch the fireworks. But the sky was so bright that when the first firework went off, nothing could be seen. The king sighed. Meanwhile, elsewhere in the kingdom, a house switched off its light. The light inspectors knocked on the door. At that moment, the lights in the next house went off. And the lights in the house next to that, and the house next to that. The same thing was happening on the street next to that, and the street next to that, and the sky began to dim. The light inspectors began to panic, called for backup. All the guards at the palace rushed to help them. And that's when, with the palace unguarded, a small group of people climbed up the walls and switched off the very last switch. Artificial sun, do not switch off. The sky went dark. The king shuddered. "We must turn the sun back on, Your Majesty," shouted the advisors. "We must crush the uprising. We must punish the people." "Shh," said the king. "Look, the lights had gone out just in time for the grand finale." Instead of punishing anyone, the king lifted the ban on the dark. And now every year on the same night, the people set off fireworks in the darkness to remind themselves of what they almost lost. The king still sometimes is a little bit scared of the dark, but he sleeps with a nightlight these days. And if only he'd done that in the first place, the whole mess might have been avoided. So I was really interested as I was reading this book about how the king's advisors were sharing those rumors about how the dark was scary, about how it was stealing their money. And I was thinking about, how do we find the truth when people who are important are telling us something that we think might not be true? Do you have an idea of how you might find the truth when you're not sure if something's the truth or not? Search it up. Maybe ask other people you do trust, right? Right? But it can be scary, right, when somebody is telling you something you're not sure is true, right? Especially when it's like, the dark is stealing your money, right? Yeah, that doesn't seem quite right, does it? And it can be scary because all of your money would disappear, right? How do we not be afraid? You can have a nightlight, yes. What might a nightlight look like if it wasn't a nightlight? Like other people? Yeah. I'm not afraid when I talk to other people, and they help me figure out what the truth is. How about you? Mm-hmm. Who had the most power in this book? Yeah. The king at first, right? But what happened later? Who had the power to override the king? Yeah? The people. They got together, and what happened? They each turned off the light. So when the people talk about the truth, they've got a lot more power, right? Yeah. I like to think about that when I think about all of these people behind us. All these people have power together. Isn't that pretty cool? Yeah. Thank you for coming up and sharing this silly story with me. All right, let us sing our children back to their seats.
Giving of our treasure is how we reciprocate the many gifts we are given by this community and how we live our values in the world. Each Sunday, we offer our financial gifts both to this congregation and to an organization that gives life to these values and makes a difference in the world. Stevie Wonder once said, "Just because a man lacks the use of his eyes doesn't mean he lacks vision." The special collection this month will help support Spectrios Institute, a unique not-for-profit organization dedicated to comprehensive, multidisciplinary, low vision care. Nominated by DUUC member Sarah Baldwin, the Institute offers functional eye exams, vision exams, personalized rehabilitation plans, occupational therapy, and adaptive technology training and support for children and adults with visual impairments. As we pass our offering plate, know that it is a vessel that connects us to each other through our gratitude and generosity. So give freely your thankfulness and abundance that our values can forever take hold in our world.
Morning. Every year, when on Veterans Day we honor the service of veterans in our church service, I am reminded of my own 2 years of alternative service as a conscientious objector during the Vietnam War. I recently found out that there is an International Conscientious Objector year on day every year on May 15th. It honors conscientious objectors to war across the world, many of whom are imprisoned or otherwise penalized because they do not have a legal way to serve their country in a time of national crisis in an alternative manner. As I prepared this talk on my personal experience, it occurred to me that this topic would be relevant and informative even today, as young men are required to register with Selective Service within 30 days of their 18th birthday in the event of a future war and need for a draft. Men and women currently serving in the military may also come to the realization that they are conscientious objectors and need information on how to proceed. As part of the auction, I asked Reverend Mandy to do a sermon on conscientious objection to help us explore the moral case for refusing to fight in war, and to, if conscience allows, instead serve our country in a time of war in an alternative way. My own personal experience of becoming a conscientious objector began in 1969, when at the age of 23, I was drafted during the Vietnam War. I was a devout Catholic at the time and had been attending seminars on the morality of war at the Newman Center for Catholic Students at Wayne State University in Detroit, where I was getting my bachelor's degree in physics and math. I also participated in anti-war activities at the University of Colorado in Boulder, where I was doing a year of volunteer service in Extension Volunteers, which was a VISTA-type organization sponsored by the Catholic Church. I read a number of materials developed by the American Friends Service Committee and spoke with one of their local draft counselors on how to apply for conscientious objector status with the local draft board. Before I was drafted, I had discussed my feelings about participating in war with my youth advisor at my home parish in Detroit, who was a World War II veteran and who wrote me a letter of support saying he believed I was sincere in my objection to war and to participating in any type of military service. I wrote a letter to the editor published in the Detroit News emphasizing my belief in the commandment, "Thou shalt not kill," and the principles of non-resistance spoken of by Jesus in the Sermon on the Mount. The chaplain at the Newman Center also wrote me a letter of support attesting to my sincerity. At the draft board, they asked if I would be willing to go to jail for 2 years if my application for conscientious objector status was denied. I said yes, perhaps the most courageous moral decision I've made in my life. Thankfully, my request was granted, and I went to a month of training for Brethren Volunteer Service in Baltimore, Maryland in the summer of 1969. Brethren Volunteer Service is part of the Church of the Brethren, one of the 3 historical peace churches in the United States, along with the Quakers and the Mennonites. After a month of training and discussions with the staff, I was offered 3 options for my 2 years of alternative service, which were deemed to be in the national interests of the country: teaching physics for 2 years in Poland, teaching English for 2 years in Nigeria, and serving in a community program in South Lawndale at 16th and California in Chicago. It was the Kennedy era, and the mantra, "Ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country," rang in my mind, and I chose the Chicago option. I was assigned to do social service activities such as after-school programming for neighborhood youth, coaching a youth baseball team, working with the local street gang, doing community organizing to improve the educational system in the area, and working with a group of multinational volunteers from Switzerland, France, and various parts of the United States, including Puerto Rico. We were paid a stipend of $40 a month and provided with room and board. I loved doing this social service work, and at one point I was asked what I'd like to do once my alternative service was ended. I said, "I'd like to do volunteer work for the rest of my life." My friends laughed at my idealism, but I found that a period of national service for our country broadened my perspective and taught me how service to others can be profoundly meaningful. It made me aware of how volunteer programs like AmeriCorps and the Peace Corps made a lot of sense as part of becoming a mature adult. As luck would have it, a consulting social worker to our program from the University of Illinois pointed out that if I got a master's degree in social work, I could actually make a living doing social work. When my 2 years of alternative service ended in 1971, I entered the Jane Addams School of Social Work program at the University of Illinois in Chicago, and my career in social work began. I feel profoundly grateful for the work of the peace churches over the decades to make the legal option of alternative service to our country in time of need available to conscientious objectors. I do, to be honest, have a sense of guilt at being granted the privilege of alternative service while others fought and died. I feel profoundly grateful for the sacrifices that veterans have made for our country that help protect the freedom to follow one's conscience and do alternative service as a conscientious objector. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mark. I grew up in another Peace Church, Seventh-day Adventist Church, and my birthday is May 15th, and I didn't know that my birthday is Conscientious Objector Day, but super glad to hear. This is a song that I'm going to sing, and you are free to sing along because I know you're Unitarians and you can't resist. It's Where Have All the Flowers Gone, and it's by Pete Seeger. And back in the 90s, I had a boyfriend. He said, "Come here and meet this guy." So I went and met him, and it was Pete Seeger, but I had no idea who Pete Seeger was. So I was like, "Oh, nice to meet you. Oh, your sister Peggy, nice." Later I got it. So, Where Have All the Flowers Gone? Where have all the flowers gone? Long time passing. Where have all the flowers gone? Long time ago. Where have all the flowers gone? Young girls pick them, everyone. When will we ever learn? When will we ever learn? Where have all the young women gone? Long time passing. Where have all the young women gone? Long time ago. Where have all the young women gone? Gone to husbands, some of them. When will we ever learn? When will we ever learn? Where have all the young men gone? soldiers gone? Long time passing. Where have all the soldiers gone? Long time ago. Where have all the soldiers gone? Gone to graveyards, everyone. When will we ever learn? Will we ever learn? And the last one. Let's see if Tony can do it without crying. Where have all the graveyards gone? Long time passing. Where have all the graveyards gone? Long time ago. Where have all the graveyards gone? Gone to flowers, everyone. When will we ever learn? When will we ever learn?
I was well into adulthood when I first heard the term conscientious objector. It was definitely not a concept that my family would have ever taught me, and it was never covered in high school. More importantly, it was introduced through a religious lens. I understood conscientious objector in terms of religious pacifism. In the religious realm, religious pacifism and its relation to conscientious objection is typically spoken of with the historic peace churches mentioned, the Church of the Brethren, the Religious Society of Friends, or known as Quakers, and the Mennonites, which include the Amish and the Hutterites. These strong traditions were part of the history of conscientious objection in the United States. The program that Robert speaks of, that of alternative service to military draft, was shaped by conversations with these churches. Though I want to say it's important to add that some of these traditions actually struggled with alternative service. For many of these traditions, it's not simply pacifism that drives the work of objection, but actually the separation of church and state. There is in some of these traditions a deeply held belief that the church should remain completely separate from the state. Alternative service was not something that was supported by some of these traditions because of that. During my research on this sermon, Robert lent me a number of books that shared the history of conscientious objection. I was particularly struck by the story of General Lewis B. Henry, who was in charge of the U.S. military draft from World War II to Vietnam. Henry worked with the historic peace churches and the military administration to find solutions for both religious and ethical concerns that citizens might have with military conflict and war. Well, certainly not a perfect solution, and as Robert shared, a privileged solution, that was not available to all. It was a huge step to military in understanding and respecting objectors to military conflict. But it was also an important part of the conversation around civil liberties and separation between church and state. Now, our Unitarian Universalist tradition is not a pacifist tradition. For our tradition, holding a belief of pacifism, even if it's in alignment with our values and the flourishing of all people, is too close to a doctrinal statement. But that is not to say that our tradition has not supported conscientious objectors. The executive positions of the Unitarian Universalist Association hold the letters of both conscientious objectors in our tradition and the ministers who supported them. In the same way Robert had folks from his Catholic parish who wrote letters to support him, you ministers have as well. Of course, arguments can be made from a peace-loving tradition, but rather are based upon the argument of conscientious objection can be made from a peace-loving tradition, but it can also be based upon our Unitarian Universalist values. While my exposure to conscientious objection was around religious pacifism, I've come to understand it differently, especially after reading all of the great books that Robert gave me. There are many people whose objection to war is not primarily about violence, but about whether a particular war is just, or the political argument about whether a war should be engaged in by our particular nation. I found that objections expand far beyond the concept of peace and violence into the realm of ethical justifications for war, which was actually a topic that I touched on with Neil Lichtman last year when he, in his service auction winning, asked about just war theory. I suspect, and Neil and Robert can confirm these, that the interest in this topic might be bumped up a little bit because of our own particular moment of uncertainty, especially the tactics of ICE agents, a militarized police force on our streets. And there is no way that Robert or I could have known when he proposed this topic that the United States would have invaded and arrested the Venezuelan president Maduro, placed an embargo on the nation of Cuba, or that we would attack Iran with the nation of Israel, who is already engaged in genocide in Palestine. The topic of war, what is just, and how we as citizens can object is profoundly more intimate and real than it has been in well over a decade. And this is now made all the more real by the automatic enrollment of our newly adult male children in the selective service within 6 months of their 18th birthday. For many of us, we're wondering about how this affects our children, our siblings, and our loved ones. What is particularly real for me in this moment is that this moment is unlike any that we've had in history, at least in our US history. We are faced with an administration in which there is no longer a respect for ethical boundaries, let alone dissent. I worry that a program like what General Hershey created, which allowed civil service, would be too much of a stretch for an administration which refuses to understand the ethical and religious boundaries held by people of faith and conscience. Furthermore, I am concerned about how the language around military conflict in Iran is utilizing the Christian nationalist idea of Armageddon and their willingness to bring what they consider the end of the world into fruition. Now, while I say that I have my doubts about the possibility for conscientious objection status and programs in a regime that is power-hungry and warmongering, I also want to say that I think the conscientious objector movement is one that instills within it the tools to counter authoritarianism, most especially by living into the concept of the separation of church and state. The separation has been profoundly blurred as Christian nationalism rises, and especially as the language of war and conflict enters the scene. Now more than ever, we need people of faith to rise together to counter tactics that would blur these lines. Yet we also need people en masse to rise up and critically respond to conflict through not only protest, but through legal and philosophical arguments. In the same way that authoritarians attack first the inspiring and creative resistance of artists, academics, philosophers, and critical thinkers are also attacked for the ways that they challenge the overly simplistic answers and black and white ethical framework of zealous, power-hungry politicians. We need people to answer the challenges of this moment with the same thoughtful and carefully considered ethical analysis that conscientious objectors have historically employed for wars of the past. This includes, of course, how that ethical framework is supported and formed by the faith traditions that value all life as sacred, that strive to make justice a reality for all people, and who wish to ensure that the church remains separate from the state. Moreover, conscientious objectors model for us what a faithful act of resistance looks like when they are challenged to act on their convictions despite the risks that may come. Conscientious objectors have not only faced jail time, but public and personal criticism and ridicule for their acts of conscience. As a pluralistic tradition, one of the many ways that Unitarian Universalism is made for this moment is that we already engage in the many acts that conscientious objectors model for us. We are a faith tradition that takes seriously how the values that we espouse look and are embodied in our daily life. Pluralism also means that we are a faith tradition that is experienced in living in the tension between different ideas, thoughts, and ethics, and how they come to play out in our everyday lives. We honor our many veterans and their families for the service that they have given to our country, and we honor the conscientious objectors and their choice to engage in alternative service. We are skilled or becoming skilled as we engage in learnings like today's Adult Religious Education Hour on crucial conversations that teach us how to have difficult conversations from different places with people who have very different ideas from our own. By being part of this beloved community, learning and growing together, we are becoming experts at living into the tension of being human while honoring the worth and dignity of every person. This is what is most fundamentally at the heart of the beloved community, honoring difference as a way to transform ourselves into more faithful people that live our values more fully in the world. In this moment of resistance and dissent, let us embrace the parts of our tradition that we are made for the parts that will allow us to rise above hate, to bring flourishing to all people. As we honor the search for truth and meaning in a free and responsible manner, may we remember that all of us belong in beloved community in order for all of us to learn and grow and make the reality of beloved community a possibility. May it be so. Blessed be.
Please join me in saying our chalice extinguishing words. We extinguish the light of this chalice, but not the light in our hearts. Until we meet again, may the warmth of our community carry you.